refreshed. I'm refreshing. It's dead. Oh. Register. I'm registering. I've registered. Please check your email to confirm. Register another email? Why not?
Good morning, exiles.
Why are you
from the GGG
so stretched out?
Here in New Zealand. All three of us in person.
He's very quiet
today for the first time ever for a very exciting and massive Q&A after.
I don't even know where to begin. There's too much. There's too much.
Some huge announcements there.
They're very quiet. They're very, very quiet.
You guys just kind of got in a room together.
Is chat saying it too?
Set up the whiteboard and put everything on there, huh?
Yeah.
End of the day, really, we have this much time, we have this many people who can do what we do, and we just keep going till the end. Like, it doesn't stop here. Like,
Mark's
we've still got one
louder.
more week, right? Like, there are still changes that can be made, so we're going to keep making them. So, but yeah, it's huge. It is absolutely massive.
Yeah, Jonathan was saying to me the other day, I don't think it's that big. And I was like, mate, that was crazy. It just kept
I
going.
haven't gotten my confirmation email yet.
Yeah, I mean, I guess from my perspective, I kind of look at this and I'm like, okay, when I compare it to the amount of stuff that's being created for PoE 2, it seems small, but yeah, when you actually think about it, it's like, yeah, it's pretty nuts.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, making a whole new game there, but we are only talking about Path of Exile 1 today, and you gave it plenty of space to shine.
Oh, they really are just not talking about Path of Exile 2 today.
Leagues,
they really listened
a lot going
and said, we don't give a fuck about this PoE 2 bullshit.
Content as well. And
Let
with
us know
all
when
of
it's
that,
done.
you did tease us once again with the concept and potential of a boat league, and yet you sailed away and left us stranded on the dock once more. What gives?
It's very much not
true.
intentional.
We don't actually get to go on any of the boats.
I suspect, and honestly,
Wrong camera.
I honestly
Wrong
reckon
camera again.
if someone
There you
actually
go,
got a boat league, they wouldn't end up actually liking it. But we can only really prove that by testing it, and so maybe one day we'll get there. But until then, you're just going to there'll be boats, but you won't be on the boats. Maybe one day. We'll see.
It'd be too small of like an arena. You could have like a giant boat and like be like the arena of a boss fight.
So,
I guess
does
it'd be like
this
a
feel
fish.
like to you guys? And I've seen this theory floated around a lot of a bit of a send-off league for Path of Exile 1, in a sense that we've got the Path of Exile 2 beta kind of just around the corner now.
I guess I don't really see it that way because
I hope it is.
Keep on making PoE 1.
Stop making PoE 1 after PoE 2. Stop.
It really is just the standard lead cycle.
Stop.
It is hard as a
Get
studio
help.
making two things at the same time, for sure.
Patch
but
notes.
that's something we just have to sort of get used to. And yeah, we certainly wouldn't want people to think, oh yeah, this is like the last PoE 1 league or something like that, right? It's certainly not
fucking
the case.
website just keeps
We're going
crashing.
to be continuing to make PoE 1
There's
leagues
so many
and
people that want to
but
register.
You should expect to see things of this size in the future as well.
So, Settlers of Kalguur, it adds gold, and I think we should touch on that and the whole currency exchange thing first. So, it's obviously using gold for its features, its progression with the workers and upgrading buildings and things like that. But you're also experimenting with some core game features like respecs and a trading fee for the new currency exchange. Huge announcement there. So those that have been following Path of Exile 2 will be familiar with the concept of gold and why that's a thing that you might add to the game now after it's not had gold for so long. But could you explain what is the idea behind gold?
I don't really mean it.
So really, I mean, gold is something that PoE 1 obviously never had. I think it's something that, in retrospect, I think that didn't help the game. The important thing with gold is that it's not used as a trading currency. Like, gold needs to be something that is only it's bound to the individual character, and that means what it effectively is a measure of how much actual play that you've done, right? Since you can't trade it between players, and that means that it's actually ends up being a perfect currency to be able to do something like gate the player-to-player trade with an automated system.
Have they not released patch notes yet?
In order to be able to you can't just sit there flipping all day. You actually have to be able to go and play the game as well, and that sort of prevents the kind of crazy inflation that you can get with other automated, auction house type systems that you see in other action RPGs, or at least that's the theory. But the thing is that we have to test this stuff, and this is the reason why we're really keen to do it as a league mechanic.
I like that they're talking about all this right now because I don't care about it at all.
Is it going to work?
Just keep
is the economy
refreshing the
weird?
website looking
what's
for
going to happen? That way we can kind of dip our toe in,
notes.
see what happens. Test this, because the thing with this trade stuff is you really cannot test it, like in the office, right? Like it is simply we don't have thousands and thousands of people that you would need to be able to actually see how that goes. So on some level, we kind of need our community to see what happens with the economy to be able to test something like that, and that's just one of the few areas where that's like that. What we're hoping is that everything just goes fine. It's just way better. We can then immediately put it in
they named it something different
as soon as we've done with that. Ideally without too many tweaks.
I wonder if I can type
that'll
in.
be good, but we really have to see by putting it in a league
press
first.
kit.
The thing I really like about this gold idea is that it allows you to effectively be converting this idea of friction in the user experience of like physically trading.
No, the Necropolis
into
one still works.
Actual gameplay,
right?
The stuff
for
we
sure.
like doing,
for
right?
sure.
It crashed, but it was going to send me there.
As I said, like this system, it'll be also really nice to be able to see how it works before we ship PoE 2 as well. It's really nice to to be able to do that, and we may be able to go further than this.
What's in this box
further,
right
and so this is effectively our first the first part.
What is that?
We'll see how it goes. I don't know if you know.
There is also one thing about this, and just because it maybe wasn't clear, is that
right there.
despite being in the league, gold is just dropping as items from killing everything in the game. You kill monsters, you play the game, you're getting gold. You don't actually need to engage with the league to
is there anything I use gold
gambling,
for?
Use
I guess
the
I use gold to buy items.
Exchange. So despite being in the league, and the gold is only dropping in the league due to us being more experimental with it and seeing how it goes. Like, if you don't like the league's mechanics, it's not like those are gated behind that as well. I just wanted to clarify that just in case anyone was thinking, I don't want to.
I feel like they got too loud now.
Faustus into your hideout and then just use them for that, and and that can be the only thing you do if you want.
So
like
all
peeking
that
red on my thing.
The item gambling and stuff is all like fully accessible, even if you basically don't do any of the other stuff.
For sure.
Yeah, which means, of course, if it is successful, it can port into the core game very easily. You just turn gold drops on, put Faustus in. Done. I mean, there's a little bit more than that, but that's generally the summary of it. It doesn't have to come with the whole kind of city building element. And
I wonder how the ship thing is going to work. For 5 hours, he got
that's likely to stick around then, and that's kind of the intention.
That is certainly our intention.
Like a few chromes.
To be able to still have an out. If
that's like one mob.
If
I just map myself.
So it is certainly our intention to keep it in if we can.
It's a nice little safety net at being part of the league for you then. Safety rip.
Probabilities are high, and I suspect also no one's going to let us remove it, right? So let's be realistic here.
It would have to go horrifically wrong for everyone to be like, okay, you were right, don't do this. I can't imagine. So there's also this gambling thing with Faustus where you can buy these un-ID'd items and actually look pretty powerful.
They look fucking broken unless they were doing something for the video.
What's the idea behind the gold-based gambling?
They were all T1 and life and res, all of them.
You don't want gold to just be accumulated forever. But the awesome thing is that it's a way to target specific base types. And that's ultimately the luxury. So obviously when you're going through the campaign and you're looking for specific targeted gear upgrades, very, very useful for that. And as you get higher and higher level,
If we got minion base types, probably not.
Sort of. But also, as you just get higher level, it upgrades.
Man, minions really got shafted this league, it seems.
The modifier tier rating, which was a term some people might not know, but it was used in Necropolis League, which effectively cuts off the bottom X tiers that can generate. So the items by endgame will be generating with a minimum tier higher than something. And
I guess we'll be tankier.
It's worth mentioning that there's quite a lot of changes in this league around the idea of how can we make rares
all the quality stuff, all the armor stuff doesn't really affect us.
Actually, around this idea, and that
the crit chance and all that stuff doesn't affect minions.
To make it so that there's that they can compete with uniques more. The higher tier life mods.
You probably can't get minion gear from gold.
And the ability to get rares this way as well is once again another part of this. So we really want to try and make it so that and the reason why that's important is because if
ranged and melee both got buffs and ascendancy changes.
The item quants problem as well. That was one of the other things that sort of meant that you had to be tied to specific uniques.
I guess we can res old corpses again.
Wanted to remove
they
more
said,
of the barriers that
but they showed 2 bad corpses.
And then
they didn't show any good
types,
ones.
you know, like if less uniques become mandatory,
like a chieftain.
That's, you know, as I said, it's just another one of those things that kind of affects that.
Maybe you can get chieftain though.
So
that would be really good.
Attractive expenditure of gold.
That would actually
how much do you want
really
players
good
to be able to trade currency freely between each other with this very fast and asynchronous currency
I'm
exchange
snoozing.
system? Like,
why are we talking about trade?
Is your ability to control how much of that's happening in terms of volume. How liquid do you want any currency orb drop to be?
So for currency in particular, we're fine with like a very high amount of liquidity. Later on, you know, we've talked about how in PoE 2 we're going to be doing asynchronous trade for items as well. For that, they're
torturing me.
A bit less liquidity. And the
no
reason
patch
why
notes.
Currency,
no teaser web page.
Its own currency sync. So
no Settlers of Kalguur web page. Anything for me to look
at. You
at.
don't have to like worry too much about fast trade there. Like the relative
can I buy the
establish and everything should be.
Can I buy the pack?
Shouldn't matter too much about that being highly liquid.
Of course, you guys put the pack in before the patch notes. Yeah, here's the. I can buy the pack.
That forever, but you know that this is something that. We don't want to. It certainly should feel like if you're just playing regularly, that you can get all the currency you want from the.
I think I just want this one.
Restricted by the gold price. Like it's not intended to be something that a normal player would run into, assuming that they're just doing normal things with currency.
Of course,
I just want him.
It is still meant to have.
That's really it. I just want him. I don't even really want this.
You don't want.
You don't want.
I don't want that. I don't want that.
Experience and the new player experience, where
I
they
don't
think
want
the
that.
right answer is to go and just trade all
And I
of the
don't want
stuff
that.
away. You want it to be that you're more finding items there and getting things organically, and only later in the game does it become.
So the gold prices late in the game are like not a roadblock at all. The gold prices early in the game are a roadblock. So that's kind of.
I'll buy the cheap one, and then we'll see about like
now when you're leveling your first character,
the vault pass and supporter packs probably.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, but that honestly sounds like a relief that you're not worried about that sort of thing too much, because that that kind of incentive to hoard currency and not spend it all while leveling is always a bit of a bummer.
Right.
This feels like a bit of a momentous occasion, the the currency exchange. This because you've had this whole system of like the currency that syncs itself and stuff for so long, and now finally blending.
There are going to be people that are going to hoard like
system.
millions, like
Huge.
TFT or something. They're going to hoard like millions.
As well, right? Because it's like
dump it all at once to like drop the price.
It's just one of those things.
Because they said it works like a stock market or something.
This was one of the key components that was part of like designing the league.
And then do some like dumb shit where they can like buy it all up because they dropped the price, like buy back more than what they
ask most people
put
in
in
the
or
office,
some
most
shit. I
players
don't
in the
know.
office,
Some dumb
and
shit like that's
outside
going
the
to
office,
happen.
What is the like number one problem with Path of Exile? And what experience gives them the most negative reaction?
For sure,
it's often trade.
Yep.
And especially, and I
this is only for currency though.
League before.
No items.
And I was trying to buy.
So have to go player to player for items.
It was like one of the catalysts. I was like, okay, I just need a catalyst up my rings and ammo.
Oh man.
And you know, you get 100 people on the trade website.
Yep.
I just went spam. I got 100 people. And guess how many replied? Zero. Zero people replied to me. Now I know you're meant to scroll down because all the top people are just bad actors. And then it's like, okay, I actually got to a point where I was like, okay, genuinely no one replied. And then like so as I say on Discord, I was like, yo, I need some help buying these things. Can everyone just start messaging everyone trying to get these catalysts for me, please? And so yes, it is actually one of, or was hopefully to be no longer soon, the most frustrating experience you can have as a player at endgame.
Something else.
And yes,
I feel like they could have solved this with like trade rep.
Okay, if this is the number one problem,
like
how
more
are we not
reputable
taking some sort of stride
sellers
to solve it?
Would be at the top of the list.
That's kind of where, well, it almost acted as the basis of how. Can
and
we
if you
build
like
something
don't respond or something,
because then it's gold, and then it's like, what can you do with gold?
It's an automatic like -1. Like you can't minus someone for not responding, but the game automatically -1s you.
I like that a lot of what we're developing now is coming from a how can we solve.
Because then
actual
everyone would just spam
first,
-1 on
as
each
opposed
other,
to just,
like
well,
fucking morons.
As opposed to entirely like how can we add cool content? It's like how can we do both of these things at the same time? And I feel like a lot of what's going on in this patch is with that philosophy, as opposed to just here's cool stuff. It's solving problems and adding cool stuff at the same time.
I love this trend of you just doing the thing we do and being like, this is awful, just like you said.
actually awful. Like,
He plays the
tried to-
game
in
more
that
than
live stream, I tried to
most
voice my disgust
people
at
play
when
the
I
game.
talked about price fixes and people who don't reply. But like, if you had got my actual emotional reaction, I would have probably been screaming a little bit and raging like a little bit more.
Yeah, most infuriating thing. And
I wonder how much
ground me down
Jonathan
last
plays
week
the
that
game.
stopped me from enjoying as much as I could. So it's huge, and it really pairs in with like the Scarab changes. and
Even
stuff
Chris these
recently
days. I wonder how
so
much Chris even
we'll talk
plays.
more about that later. But the currency exchange includes.
Chris can't even be
fragments,
bothered to show up to
scabs,
work for
anything
these.
that's
The fuck?
homogenized.
Exactly, that's the
Right.
word. So yeah, anything, so obviously
They're just using the same pre-recorded clip of him from 6 years
they're
ago.
Not all identical. It's just anything that where they're exactly the same. No one item can be distinguished from another.
It has to be able to stack.
Yep.
Is ultimately the goal. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, use the existing trade system for the things that can't. So that's like beasts can't be, maps can't be, incubators can't be because they have a level. You know, things like that. They can't because they cannot guaranteed stack on a single thing. And it's not like you want to.
You can
don't
stack
want to have
maps
a
now in
tab of
a
incubators where it's got every incubator
Kalguur
level
map
1, every
device.
incubator level 2, every incubator
13
level 3,
times.
You
Does
know,
that
in
count?
this giant mega eternal list. So. Things like that you'll be trading using the existing way, and all stackables you'll trade, hopefully, using the new way.
All right, but
div cards.
Yes, div cards are in there.
Okay,
Yep,
wow, okay.
yep.
Wow.
Anything that is stackable,
There's just so many of them. That's all.
Oh, interesting.
anything that's stackable and has no other variable. Yep.
Wow.
I wonder
And,
how
you're
that's
talking
going to
about,
change
like,
the
a
market.
list like the
Of, like,
13
people,
most common trade pairs
being
for
able to
each
just
item
instantly
and-
trade
so this
everything.
is the thing, because with this trade system, you can
Anything
technically
that-
trade any item for any other item, because
Yeah.
that's how PoE works. So we have to have some kind of way to basically tell players, okay, so here's the actual thing that like people are trading this with. So effectively, unless you're the first person ever to trade something, then it's going to say like, here's the most popular several things that people trade for the SOAR, trade for the Sin. It also shows you like the market price, obviously, for what's been going on, as well as okay, so we're getting into stock market terms here, but the first five.
I'm listening. I'm totally listening.
Book.
I'm
so that's to
listening.
say you can see like
I'm paying attention.
what how many things are available at a few different price levels, and that will allow you to do your trade. So I suppose some people will be learning more about the stock market pretty soon.
Yep.
They'll have, I guess we'll have
I mean, some people are going to love that.
yeah, for sure. But one thing just to make sure people understand is like this is still player to player trade. Like you don't know who you're trading with, and like it will be instant if there's like liquidity in the market. But it is coming from someone else's actual stash.
Yeah, it's a physical trade. Still.
Yeah. So just that's worth being, because
Instant.
some people when they see the video, they're okay, it's just like you're trading with the system somehow. Or there's some kind of like market thing where the system like determines a price or something. No, it's not that. You're actually buying off someone else. So any trade you do where you've got like I'm buying this, I'm selling this, someone else has entered a trade on the other end of I'm selling this, I'm buying that.
And the prices are all set by players. It's not you guys setting that stuff.
Exactly.
There's a few other things I'll just mention as well that are adjacent or that got implemented as a result. So like when you're adding them, it will pull from your stashes. It won't. You don't have to move everything to your inventory first and then do it. So you can, because if people might be wondering, okay, if I want to sell or trade away 5,000 chaos or some number of chaos that won't fit in their inventory.
That's not how I thought it worked.
As long as it's in the
I thought it
stash,
was
you can do it.
you dump in
up to
chaos and
65,000
the
of a
market
given currency in a
decides what the
single,
price is based on how
exchange.
much is there and how much people are
You don't have
buying.
that much.
Like
What
but
else?
not
You
that the
can-
players all
there are
also
shortcut binds
decide.
for moving all of them to your inventory, so you don't have to like control click spam 1,000 times. It is, I believe, control
feel like
right
this is
click will move
bad.
all of them to your inventory.
I feel like
And
Maple
also
Story
as
could
a
happen.
bonus, we have implemented that to and from the stash with all stackables as
The problem
well.
with Maple Story
So you can
was
control right click on a thing in your inventory to move all of that
the
straight
rich
into your stash.
could just buy out all
And
of
vice
the
versa.
chaos or buy out all of the Onyx stuff that it was back then.
Thank you.
Yes, yeah.
Just buy out everything under like
Exchange. Very
1,000
So if this is successful,
and then just list it for higher. And if you ever list something for lower, they'll list it for higher. They'll buy it, list it for higher.
Well, that's certainly the
And
plan.
I wonder if they're going to get people like they're going to get like bots to just infinitely buy out everything.
So Well, I believe that we will get there.
So, like,
and that's certainly our intention.
yeah, I don't know.
We'll see how it goes. But yeah,
I wonder if there's like one person who like drops a mirror, they can just buy out the entire chaos market, and there's just no chaos.
Amount of the problem, because I think this is the currency is what you're doing all the time. You need that to be easy. So like we
resell it is the main issue, not just that it's being bought, but that it's being resold.
For the first time ever, that's been the we want to do this unless something goes wrong.
Yeah.
Amazing. Perfect. All right. Well, we'll leave the currency exchange there. Thanks for the extra insight on that. Did you have to resist the temptation to go like full candle graphs and all that stuff?
I'm sure at some point this will start to happen. We'll have community websites of all the technical indicators.
Kiwi Ninja kind of already has it.
Mad Money YouTube channel. Yeah.
It is worth noting also on the currency exchange, I will be posting a video on Monday just for anyone who's unclear, or Monday or Tuesday, New Zealand, for anyone who's unclear on how it works. It's a little bit of a like currency market for dummies kind of thing. It's just goes over the basics and hopefully,
Listen, this is already done.
There's room for either feedback on UX if they see anything that wants to change, or of course just better understanding of how to use it. It is very easy for someone to get very scared looking at it and go, I don't quite know what to do. But it is pretty straightforward. You just, it can be.
But something that changes very often.
Out of buying or selling stuff because you may be like, I don't know what the best ratio is, and it provides all that stuff for you. It's pretty straightforward, but still. So hence putting out a video to try and help people out, in terms of understanding when they're going into it, and we'll see how it goes.
Mate, I'm definitely signing up for your trading tips newsletter. Can't wait.
My trading tips currently is like spam everyone and get really angry. So hopefully it's no longer that afterwards.
That's all of our strategy currently. Excellent. So returning to Settlers of Kalguur, how did this very cozy concept for the Settlers come about of this town building thing?
Well, I know what you pitched me on first was Pal World League.
Interesting.
I remember your initial response, I think, was, hold on, that could mean many things. Does that mean we have guns? And I was like, well, maybe.
Pokemon things.
Oh, that actually would be so much cooler than fucking buying your guys. You go and fucking kill them and you capture them. Oh, like beasts, and then you put the beasts to work. Oh, why didn't they do that?
Stuff going on, like it was pretty crazy, and so it kind of got put into a more sort of like PoE applicable like.
And then the harder the enemy, like the better the worker you get.
Coming from again the philosophy of wanting to solve problems. So I wrote down all the problems. And I was like, how can we solve all these problems? And it was like, well, if you had an NPC for each, and then it's like an NPC, well, that would mean a town for each. And then you want to make some game mechanic out of it, so you have some level of automation and stuff like that. And yes, there was a very, very, very long list at the start. And we ended up just refining it down to like, here are the actual important things that we can do and want to do. But yeah, and then obviously how the rest of it came about, the coziness and using
the resource management thing,
all of that stuff,
looks very scary.
Just comes from the fact that it's like, well, one thing that takes a long time in development, like a very, very long time, is art. Right? It takes a long time. You got your concept, you got research, you got.
Did they the
actual?
They didn't say anything about the resources being tradable, huh?
Process. So all of a sudden, when
is nothing in this league tradable?
Well, we've got all this art from this other game here.
Andy.
Yeah.
Can you trade Orichalcum with other players and Rune Dust?
We've got this whole
Can you trade gold?
Kalguur and making a settlement on Rayclast. We thought it would be just cool to sort of tell that story of how that happened here, and we've got some of the stuff like we're like, it would be quite nice to do that. That's kind of ended up how that being. But the theme that we got there came after the initial concept of we want to make some kind of settlement town thing, and we're like, okay, what can we do with that? And then we realized, hey, like we've already got this sort of storyline we've got going on here in PoE2, might as well.
It'd be cool if we could see other players there.
It definitely feels like
just like phantoms of them.
The scope of the world a little bit, because this is kilometers away. I saw on the map.
Oh, that the stream died.
Those are people who have not been involved in the storyline of PoE1.
I think their stream died.
New expansion.
Oh no, my stream died.
They always sort of technically existed. Like
no,
when we did the previous expansion with them, expedition. But
goodbye, stream.
like in PoE2 we kind of expanded on that because we had that location and everything, and so we.
We're back. That,
okay. We've got.
I don't know why my internet did for 1 second there.
Flavor to have to do that sort of stuff.
But yeah, it is very, very rare for us to go to
They didn't
talk
say
about or
anything.
go outside of Ray class.
Very
ever.
interesting.
Yeah, there's presumably
so-
a whole world out there, but we're
There
not.
Refresh. Get chat back.
That was a good. I could have used that as an.
I wonder
excuse
how
for
many
no vote league.
people.
Was
I
to have
didn't
it-
check how
No,
many people
there's
were
no-
watching
no,
the
there's
stream.
no vote.
63,000 now,
The
but
rest of it, yeah.
how many during the actual
I've already
reveal?
dropped the ball on that one. There's a few
Damn-
boats already.
Damn it! There's lots of water.
All right.
Yeah.
So this idea of this is very much like a meta progression league, right? Like, and that's not a new concept. The idea of like a league having its own sort of progression outside of your personal.
Ziggy doesn't have
character
like
progression,
notes
but
and
this
like
is definitely,
questions to read off of.
The main
right
flavor
now.
here, it feels. Is this something you specifically wanted to give players, like a greater context for their things that they're doing? So
This
they're
could all be
doing their
pre-recorded,
Atlas,
I
but
just
they're getting
realized.
golden resources and progressing this whole other thing.
Wait,
I mean,
this could be
for
like
sure, but I will mention
hyper
that,
pre-recorded,
this wasn't
right?
dwelled on a lot in the video, but like the resource gathering thing, like those encounters are encounters that you're going to be encountering through the world, and they have their own mechanics and stuff, which obviously Mark content there as well. It's just that like it's kind of not,
Even if it's like a
as
few
easy to
hours
show.
old.
Like we kind of needed to show about all this sort of town stuff, but yeah, those encounters will hopefully be
They
very
blocked out all the
enjoyable as well.
windows.
And that's
We
kinda
can't see what time of day it
I
is
suppose you could
outside.
call that the meat and potatoes in some sense of the league, because
Pre-recorded.
that's what you'll be doing. Every area you're going to find these things and have to do those encounters. So.
Yeah. So what's that content
I
like?
think I got this already.
Yeah, so you got
right?
one in every area. Well, aside from something like Tidal Island and some of that stuff, you got one in every area minimum. So it's 1 to 2. You got one in every area minimum.
Chill.
And there are 5 different outcomes, kind of 6, but we'll go over the 5. And so you can find different minerals. So the first is Crimson Iron. Crimson Iron is like iron that's overrun with
Scourge beast.
corruption. So you have these 3, 2 to 5.
Right.
It goes up as you go through the game. Of these kind of growth spawners, and they're spawning demons or monsters. And then as you kill each growth, the other growths heal, like surge, spawn more monsters, and they accelerate. So they get slightly harder over time. So it's just a full monster encounter. Upon completing it, you get the ore. You've got Orichalcum, which is like guarded by these also demons, or demons were worshipping it. And you notice it had like a shrine icon. So
Hail
after
angels and
you
stuff?
kill all the demons, you get the shrine buff, which is, without immediately it sounding underwhelming, the old you had the old like shock, well, you got the shock nova and
Oh, no, it
firestorm
was
shrines,
Ravenous.
except like done actual
Then these are
damage. So, like,
Scourge.
all of a sudden you've got meteors and lightning storms raining down around you, and they are actually designed to kind of destroy monsters. So you get just this spike of power where you can kind of just run through and let them just obliterate everything. The third is Petrified Amber, which
This is pale-
looks like a
pale
little
seraphims.
kind of like a tree thing, and clicking it, and all of a sudden heaps of blight-esque monsters kind of come out of the ground and try and attack it.
One.
And it's almost like the old Aurion missions from way back, where you just have to protect
Which
this
one did I
tree
see that
from
was
the,
pale?
The blighted monsters.
The original
It's not
one,
very
the
difficult.
the
Like,
red
none of these are pitched
amber
to be very, very
thing or
difficult.
whatever you said.
But they are going up in difficulty in the order that I am explaining them. The fourth is Bismuth, which I suspect will be people's favorite. The way this works is it's guarded by magic and rare monsters. I think 3 packs. I think 1 is rare. Well, maybe early game not rare, but late game it's like 1 is rare, 2 are magic. And they have an extra elemental modifier on them. Like the rare and magic mods, they just got an extra one that's elemental aligned. And when you obviously kill them, there's some free 3 packs of monsters. No one's going to complain about that. You click the Bismuth, it releases the elements into the rest of the area, which will apply elemental modifiers to all magic and rare packs in the
hell
area.
no.
League monsters have a lower chance of getting them, so it's not too out of control. And that does come with the difficulty, but it also comes with the increased item quantity and rarity
It's
that
a bit Wildwood,
the mods come with.
isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. Obviously it
Man,
doesn't spawn
I'm gonna
frequently
kill
enough,
myself
so I don't
doing
expect
these,
people
aren't
to do
I?
the whole, running around the whole area killing nothing before clicking it.
Yeah, nice.
You'd be wasting all of your time. However, of course, I can imagine it is
Except
the
if I
Magic
click
Finder's
it, it
dream.
kills my character, and then
Even
I've
though Magic
wasted
Finding is nerfed,
a couple
but
days
whatever,
of
that's
my
a
time.
different thing. It is the current, whatever is to be Magic
Oh,
Finder's dream.
Magic
of-
Finds buff because it's better now because you don't have to wear
Oh,
crappy
yeah, true.
gear.
Well,
too.
sure. Well, yeah, sure. Whatever state it's in, or however you feel about it, it is the dream for that person.
Did they mention how easy it is to get
obviously you can
rarity
find
on
even- I
rare
believe
items
you can find
and,
2 of them in an area, and all of a sudden,
like,
you
not
doubling
unique
up on
gear?
that. I will obviously double check that, but that was definitely
They mentioned it was
intention.
improved on unique gear, but they didn't say anything about
Yeah, you're getting
base
like these
gear.
kind of elemental tornadoes spawn throughout the level. Obviously, they don't spawn when all the monsters are dead, so you're not just like losing and getting killed by a random tornado. And
Nice.
then the fifth encounter is Verisium, which is the thing that the Kalgurans love so much. And that very much is... it's like the encounter from Crucible, where it's just like, you know, interact with this rock and it like builds up the amount of Verisium and like spawns all the monsters around it, and then you fight them and kill them, and you get the Verisium at the end, and the monsters, you can see them kind of merging and upgrading over time. And so it's a little bit of a pick your own difficulty. Obviously it doesn't have the whole, I talk about Crucible, it doesn't have the whole weapon tree ruckus going on and having to put an item in there.
Oh, I
It's
thought he
just
was actually going to say
user
that.
encounter. And then
That was going to be
of
kind of
course,
sick.
there is one boss
Oh,
as well,
man.
so occasionally you find a kind of hollow in the
in-maps,
ground.
the
Yep.
one boss.
Yep.
Why did I just see my
In-game, very
game
much
audio
in-game.
peak?
Quite difficult, and
There's
he
no game
is, guarding a lot of Verisium, and also
That was weird.
can drop a unique, and I'm pretty sure all those bosses drop a pretty substantial amount of gold as well.
So you've kind of got like 5 micro league mechanics kind of just there.
Yeah.
Also,
He still
it's
hasn't
like
said
on
if they're
top of all that
tradable.
stuff. But as I said, it wasn't really covered like that extensively.
Obviously,
in
I
the
don't
video,
care. I'm
so
just
that's
curious
something
if they
that people-
did.
Like that's your kind of like main combat stuff that you're kind of doing. That you know that's in area. In the league.
And you've got the bosses like attacking your town and
Yep,
boats
there's a couple
and
of
stuff
things
too.
like that. So yeah, there's kind of other things. So yeah, there's quite a lot, there's actually a lot going on with that that more so than what was kind of explained.
But all that to say, there's a lot of words to say that it seems like a classic
Recombinators?
fight monster in circle.
For, for sure.
Fight
for
monster
sure.
in circle.
Black market?
Yeah, it's
Whatever
1,
food
2,
production
it's 2,
gives you.
3, 5. So yeah, 4 encounters fight monsters in circle, and 1 is fight monsters in whole area.
Right.
Perfect.
Yeah, the
That's
classics.
everybody's favorite.
Yeah.
So even if you're not that into the meta progression side of things, it's still a fight monster in circle league.
Yes, yes, of course.
Good.
Sure.
It all comes back to that.
It is expected, and again, you can. There's no real harm in like just doing that for as long as you want, accumulating as much gold as you want, and then if you want to engage with the town later or something, that's always something you can do. End of the day, the gold is going to be your primary restriction, so being able to just farm for ages and get a whole bunch of gold isn't going to like, and while not necessarily engaging with the town, is not going to set you back that far.
Yes, this is very much a take it at your own leisure.
100%, 100%,
And
yes.
That touches on the next question, and the one that when I watched it, I was like, this is the thing people might be most concerned about is the somewhat controversial
Real
area
time.
of game design,
Real
timers,
time.
right?
Yeah,
So
sure.
we worried that this would give people ick because they just have that around
Yep,
timers.
I can see what you mean, and like that was honestly when I was talking to Mark.
5 hours
like,
seems like a
what's the thing
lot
That's going to be the
to me.
controversial thing about the league. That was certainly up there. One thing that we're wanting to make sure that's really clear though is that you can stack a lot of work like on like in your town that can be done in a queue without you having to come back. So it's not like you have to come back every freaking hour to like
Yep.
check on anything, right? Like you
That was
can
my concern,
you
yeah.
can queue days.
He says a lot, but
of,
not infinite.
of work and like if you're doing like your map runners, for example, like you know you've
That's
got your
5 hours.
big
You
queue
queue like
there
8 of
that
them,
you
maybe
can do,
10 of
and, like,
them.
You can just come back and then they've done all the maps,
Then
all the loot from all of
That
them.
would be days.
So you can
It'd
just
be
log
like
in
two.
when you log in.
Would be
It
10 of
also
them
doesn't
if
mean
they're
it's
5
so
hours
long.
apiece.
Like there's these sweet spots in time that we've really aimed for, right? Anything too short, highly annoying.
Yeah, 'cause you have to check it all the
And
time.
then anything too long feels like a mobile game,
Right,
Yep.
right.
right? So we have this kind of sweet spots for a lot of them where it's like
5 hours is
like,
a
for
really
example, you have
long
your queue
time.
of
I don't
maps,
know.
But I think, I will note, like I'm going to say some times, but it is like highly variable, and you have the agency based on how much gold you have, the skilled workers you have. You can get these things pretty damn quick. You can, but you can
Give me a
also
number.
have them take a bit longer, and it's not necessarily the right or wrong answer to go either way. So if you want faster turnaround on your rewards, you do have some agency on that. It'll just cost more gold to do so.
Give me a
And
number.
if you want to have like a slower turnaround, like and focus your gold somewhere else, that is entirely up to you if you want to do that. So it's got a lot of agency. However, like we have been experimenting with numbers
Like 10 minutes?
a lot. It has been discussed
like
constantly. And
a day
for
and a
example,
half.
with the shipping, you had the port of Kalguur. That's the one that has the longest distance, so the 1,500 kilometers. That does take the longest. And I currently believe it's like, you know, towards even 10 hours. But there are
Holy
ones that
shit.
are going to take less than 1 hour. And now there are advantages, like a longer shipment will yield better rewards and have higher risk and different rewards. Each port has different unique rewards.
10
And a closer
hours?
one, but it's not like such a differential that you're always going to do, well, it's hard for me to predict exactly what players will think.
We're always going to do the best one.
It shouldn't be the case that you're always.
We're always
going to
do the most efficient one.
You feel like you have to do the thing that takes like 10 hours. So there's lots of quick things, lots of long things, and it's kind of up to you how you want to engage with that. And I think that's honestly what mostly differentiates a lot of this.
In most games, the most efficient thing to do is the quickest one, though. Like the 1 minute one.
It's not like it's just some
you just have to
AFK
sit there and
town.
spam the 1 minute.
You know, at the end of the day, you have to be playing in order to actually achieve this killing monsters, looting loot. So there's heaps of stuff there, but we have aimed for
But
that
with this, it
exact
sounds
sweet
like the
spot such
longer
that
it
if
is,
you
the
are
better the
playing,
rewards.
You know, it's
But
not
how better?
highly annoying, and also not like I never get my rewards. Like it's going to be pretty bad if you're like I'm level let's say you're in Act 1 and you unlock your shipping, and you
10
send your
hours
shipping,
later,
and you're like, okay, I'm not going to get that back till I'm level 80.
The ritual problem.
Yeah, that's just terrible, right? So yes, there are very quick turnarounds as well. For things like that.
I didn't even think about that. If you do any of this shit in maps, I'll be done with maps by the time that.
And noting there are
Like I'll have
ships,
leveled
you can
from
send
like
one to a far port,
10
and
to
then
70,
one to a close port, so you can get some ships
50
turning around
to
with high
80
frequency and
in the
another
time
turning
that
around with
that's
a longer
happened.
frequency. And the same with the mapping. It's entirely based on the difficulty of the maps, and again how skilled your runners are. So if you want to have higher turnarounds as well, you can
Like
put in
even
either
30
easier
minutes.
maps, lower tier
30
maps,
minutes, I'm going
or you
up
can
like
put
5
in,
levels.
more difficult maps.
5,
Now, I
10
did note
levels,
in the
somewhere
live
in
stream the
between there.
timer on the mining was before we had done any iteration, so I'm pretty sure it had some real absurd amount of time to mine that ore. That was just a straight mistake.
I didn't see
It
that.
does not take that long. It is much quicker.
It's also worth mentioning with the stuff is that, yeah, like as I was saying with the queues, like, okay,
I didn't see
you can
that.
just put as many,
What
like,
was the times
find
on those?
resources and there's that sort of mining queue. It's not like you have to like manually reassign your things every time. Like they just move on to the next task.
Yeah.
So effectively, what that means is that you're not having to come back every and refresh them. You just play, and then the only stuff you have to come back. Anything where you'd have to come back and reset them, like for example with the mapping, the queue is long.
Bro, I
enough
feel
you can just,
so
like,
overwhelmed
jam a
with
bunch
all
of
this
in there,
stuff.
And then like what I don't want is you to feel like you have to like wake up in the middle of
Recombinators
the night
and
like freaking
selling stuff.
in there and
and
that's what I want to avoid. Like it should be that you're still coming back at
sailors
the normal
and
time that you would
protecting your
play.
guys and
Like that is our design intent,
farms
so that's
to
not,
get food
we need to
and
make sure that we're balancing it correctly so that that's the case. That you don't feel pressured to
stacking
log in at some time when you
portals
normally
and
wouldn't normally
s-
do it.
Yeah, this
so
sort of thing can
much.
be fun because it's like you get to come back to rewards and and progress, and everybody loves progress.
And we haven't seen any balance changes yet. We don't
That's
know
why we play this
what
genre.
any of the balance
But I was
changes
definitely
look
concerned
like.
about that idea that would have to, I feel like if I didn't get
Oh
out in
my
half an
God.
hour after I was planning on logging off.
Our
I would have
patch
to
note's still
reallocate
not
my
out.
workers,
Right.
But you don't have. It just does that.
Yeah, it just
all
does it.
that.
Well, yeah, we're not making a mobile game here. I know that's the
and you can't pay to skip
association.
any of these timers.
Of course not. And I'm not going to also at one point. I know
They are
that
making a
these things
mobile
are
game,
always
by the
gonna be divisive. They're not necessarily going to be globally loved. And
I don't think that's
part
what they
of it is
meant.
just you
They
have
are
to try
making
to
PoE
understand.
mobile, but that's,
The concept of a
they
timer is
meant
scary to
turning
start
base
with, but
PoE
I'm
into
also
a
on the
mobile
other
game.
hand not going to sit here about complaining about the cold currency thing and then also implement something that on the other hand I'm going to have equal levels of frustration with myself as a player. Surprisingly, but you
want to play this after all, don't you?
100. Of course, I want to play it. I'm never going to make a game I don't want to play. So yeah, my hope is, but of course that assumes we get it right. The good thing is we're very, very fast to react to this stuff. So if the timers are tilted one way or another, we have so many levers we can adjust to rebalance. It is, of course, we get our internal feedback, we get our alpha feedback on the times, but that's still
the
a very small
turnaround on
subset
your
compared
guys'
to everyone.
feedback is going to
So I
be
could expect,
kind of interesting.
if things aren't right, if they're off, if
Takes the
something's
average
too
player
taken too
probably
long or
get
too short,
to
or there's
like
not
a
enough
day
agency,
to get to the end game.
We're very, very quick to
2
be
days
flexible to that
maybe.
stuff and react to it.
Then these turnaround times are 10 hours
But yeah,
sometimes to
it's
get to the max
interesting,
one.
and it's new. For damn sure. But
So
I'd
we're
say
talking
more on
probably
the-
like a
still
week
definitely on the side
before
of
we
excited and
realize
worried.
how
Good. Yeah.
But
These
there's always a
10-hour
little bit of worry
turnaround
there. It
things
comes with
work.
the job, and
I like that you guys are still trying new things. Whether they work out or not. It's good to see.
100%. A large part of what we always try and do is push
it's
the boundary,
everything I
right?
thought.
Just
Or
doing the
not
same
everything.
thing
It is
over and
everything
over
I
and
thought.
over
It's everything I
again
thought. And it's
can make
everything.
things feel quite stale. So we definitely want to take risks and see where they go and
can't
see
believe
how they
Recombinators
evolve.
came back,
because
though.
ultimately,
I couldn't believe that. And the
makes best
queuing
game
of map
possible,
thing.
for sure.
keep trying.
It's everything I thought that they would do. I thought for sure it was going to be a
the
city
progress
builder.
and timers and things. That's all even.
I just
online
didn't know
versus
how
offline.
crazy they were going to go with it.
You don't have to like stay.
They went above and beyond anything I thought they were going to do.
The only things that can happen that disrupt it, which is obviously like if your map, if your ship gets commandeered, it can get commandeered offline or online, right? So it can stop it. It isn't something that happens like ultra frequently, and you can avoid it. You can get it to the point where a commandeering will not occur, and the same with your Atlas runners being kidnapped. That can occur online or offline, but again, it is avoidable. It doesn't have to happen. Like if you can get good enough people and run slightly.
You need
easier
a
content
PoE
tools,
mobile
and
app
risk
that notifies you to log back
failing or
in,
anything like that.
like the Rust app.
So how does this scale with like map tiers and map effect and stuff like that? So as you move up through maps, do you get more resources, more gold? Does it scale with like map quantity?
I assume it's just each.
Yep, gold. So gold scales with everything that drops would scale with. In party, I get my gold, you get your gold. We cannot share gold. Obviously, there's no point in having it if you can't trade it. Then all of a sudden, items do not sell for gold, so it's not like you can trade items to bypass that. But everything, item map quantity scales gold. Yep, all the same. It's auto pickup, obviously. With obviously
auto pickup or auto pickup in range
pickup radius, and
auto pickup in radius.
The amount of ore also should scale with quantity. Yes, obviously, much like sulfite, I guess, from Delve. That's probably one of the closest comparisons in terms of like giving you a resource.
Yeah,
it's not a ton. Farming T1 sulfite's
like
pretty
mostly gold was used to upgrade
decent.
buildings and things like that in your town, and that sort of progress is mostly through that. So the resources are all for this shipping to get this risk reward system to get currency and gear and stuff like that. And the multiple pages of currency thing, that looked a bit crazy. Is that for real? Like how much work is getting 3 pages of chaos orbs and divines and stuff?
Well, that's that agency I'm talking about as well, where a long trip should yield a lot of loot. Now, we have made some changes since then where what we're doing is instead of, because we were scaling rewards on quite a quantitative axis, and we've moved a lot of that into more qualitative, so that like instead of getting so much more currency linearly, you're getting better currency instead of more, just so it's less of that.
Alts roll up into chaos and whatnot.
Yeah, if you save up, like you can just be like,
I don't think any of the Magic Find guys or the group guys are going to touch this mechanic. It seems completely useless to them.
Send a shipment that's
10 hours they could farm mirrors in that time, unless this thing's dropping mirrors.
Because you don't want to lose that shipment. I'll tell you that.
Completely useless to them.
Thing, like you'll get back a ton of loot, but of course you have to. You're now getting 1 week of loot all in one go. You know what I mean? Like, you will get an absolute ton, which some people will find ultra satisfying.
Yeah.
Yeah, people will only play like during the weekend and stuff.
Be that you're just getting like
that would actually be really insane for them.
Items, but
they'd be like, oh fuck, I get to log in and collect my rewards, and now I get stuff to play with.
More as opposed to just the quantity. Yeah.
I saw a question in chat as well. The wages, like, how does that work with when's that getting paid? Like, do you get overdrafted account fees? Like, what are we dealing with here?
So you have to take your gold. So you've got your personal gold, and then there's a treasury, and you want to put the gold into the treasury, and the wages only take from the treasury. And the reason for that is so that you're not like just randomly losing your gold.
Okay.
You're like, okay, I'm going to get to 60,000 so I can buy these items. And all of a
You're
sudden,
bankrupt all of a sudden.
like draining it, and you're like, can't figure out. So your wages are paid from the treasury. You can do this via Johan or via the village map. There's just
please let the treasury be an actual building, like Fate, where you can pile the gold to the ceiling. Please.
So it's not like it doesn't really come in
Please
chunks.
God, make it an actual building.
Going.
And do they unionize?
And not just a fucking text box.
There, or?
Not in Ray class to know.
No worker protection in Ray class.
All of a sudden you might find you're collaborating with those pirates and with those bandits and like, arranging you're arranging them to come in and kidnap people more often, and you had that abandon option we saw because those workers were
nice.
No, they don't. It's all very much a we're all achieving the same goal, I guess, on the same team, but they just want their money. That's fine.
Yes, the children yearn for the mines. So I cracked up when I saw the map running teams auto simulating map thing.
Yeah.
So do they actually simulate running the map? Do they like actually run the map for
Nah,
you and get
no
things
way.
out of it you would get out of it?
We've tried very hard to make it feel like the case.
Nah,
However, of
yeah,
course,
that's not the case. There's no way.
You don't simulate actually every single monster dying. But it's too much.
it's-
Think if you had like
Extrapolate.
200,000
You
players
effectively take here's
with,
what you
like,
have, and then you have.
each doing
you know.
39 maps being
Here's the
simulated,
question: do you trust the workers
same
to pick up the
time.
right items? Because like. What
And
if,
then
like,
they're running
what if
maps
it's
and
like,
the servers would
you like
explode.
get back your items and you're like, damn it, I know you left a mage blood on the ground. I just know you did. But yeah, anyway, you're not going to think about that, obviously. I mean, you can if you want, but yes,
will.
you do get it back. So if you
Keep me
send
awake.
them to, I can't remember.
I wonder if they do
maps
league
which
mechanics.
shuffle
Will they
the
like
cards
do
around.
blight?
So I'm not sure which maps drop what,
Now
but
we
whatever.
can too.
Whatever one drops mage blood, if you put that base type in, you the mage blood card, you will get that card out. That is the way to get that. Of
It
course,
does work
generally
like
people
that. That's what I
running that
thought,
themselves,
yeah.
So
And you're telling me that like
Crazy.
if it's a Hydra map, they'll bring a Hydra fragment back for you.
yep, if you put in a Hydra
That's
map and they clear it
crazy.
successfully, it's worth noting they have a percentage amount of clear. And you can get that as high as you possibly can, but sometimes they get through like 50% of it and die because you put the map in as too hard.
Yeah,
You'll
they
get 50% of the
burning
items.
6 portals.
Even if it's just a
halfway
white
down,
map,
isn't
you'll
it?
still get a fragment though, because they're guaranteed
If
fragments.
you're not sending elite people, yeah, they're kind of bad.
There's different quality
Yeah.
of map runners, just as there
Or,
is in
I mean,
Path of
Is there
Exile
any
players.
if you're
reason you
sending your
wouldn't just send it
miners
in
into the
white?
Mapping, they don't know what to do. They're just like, I'm trying mining.
There's no
the
reason
monsters
you'd
and I
want to
fail.
run these maps yourselves.
But yeah, they'll
You're
bring
not
that
getting
back.
anything from
You
them.
chuck in a map with 5 delirium orbs, they'll probably all die. But if they don't, they'll bring you back some splinters and some delirium
Yeah,
rewards.
Oh,
what's,
shit,
like,
you can actually put in
most
delirium.
Sketch, like juiced up.
Please,
map
that'd be so
they can
fucking
run
hilarious
here
if
to
you can
get
do
the best of
blight.
the best.
I mean, the same as the player, right? A fully
yeah?
a prop corrupted T17 with, whatever else is bloody on it. I mean,
Oh shit, you can actually do T17s in there. What the fuck?
Sometimes you.
That's
actually-
kinda crazy.
Like it's not mistake proof. You can put it in, and it can be like they have a 1% chance of 1% of the map will be
Good luck,
cleared.
guys.
And you put it in, and you see the timer count down like 2 seconds, and then they fail, and you're like, oh, they just
6
died.
portals gone in 2 seconds.
They just died to the first monster.
Damn, that's almost as bad as me.
So yeah, you don't want to do that. But I mean, you technically can. You can just send them to die. Now they don't. In that case, they don't actually permanently die. That can happen, and you actually can lose the worker.
Oh, wow.
There is a sync on that, so you are constantly trying to find more. But
There's a
it doesn't
fail
happen
and
that
a
often.
death
And again, it is
percentage,
mostly
like 2
avoidable
different
by
percentages.
playing a
assuming.
little bit more safe instead of just sending them to their demise all the time.
This whole thing blows my mind. I just love the idea that we can just have like a bunch of plebs now to farm our fragments for it, so we can focus on.
Damn, I
bossing.
can't believe Total League didn't go
like
core.
kings,
It was all just
Volunteers, or
stupid totem
doesn't
death
work,
thing. That's what
fields.
they were hinting at.
Crazy. How did you like?
It didn't even dawn on me.
Not go super hard on this and like let us gear them and make parties.
Sad, I
and
love
change
Total
their
League.
filters
Well,
and
you know,
I
builds.
really,
like,
really love
early
Total
on,
League.
There was all
Yeah,
sorts of
yeah.
there was all sorts of stuff like that we were talking about. Like it was like we were going like full mercenary system with all sorts of stuff for a while, but it was too much and it was too complicated. So we decided not
Gearing
to
your
but,
mercenaries and shit.
Yeah, like the whole auto running maps thing was certainly something we were very keen on very early in the league.
So you know this massive expansion.
Yeah.
This is actually the downscoped version. Yeah,
I'm
we
getting
did.
that sense.
We certainly had mercenaries as in the first concept, and it was like you can send your mercenaries either on the ships or to the maps, and you
Right.
can gear them up, and you can give them skills, and they have specializations. It's like
It was just too much though. Like it was
it was
too
out
much
of control.
management, too much like we yeah.
People, I don't think would like that. I don't like putting
So
the
much
fucking
better.
heist gear on once a league.
But yeah, that does kind of sound
Doing
like another league. that I
gearing
want.
multiple mercenaries
like this
multiple
auto
times a
exile
league
thing.
because they can die and lose all your gear. Hell
Exile
no.
team manager, kind of like a sports manager game.
yep.
Yeah, awesome. Maybe for the future.
Maybe.
You gear them to like 99%.
So
you throw it in, and they
features list
die
that
immediately.
just kept going. Like you guys also showed rune smithing, which is like a new take on bench crafting, but as enchantments. These
Oh, yeah, I
rune
forgot
words,
about
are
that.
they all
There's
known
the 30%
recipes, or is there
minion
some, like,
damage I've
discovery
seen.
process there?
So you start with a few available. So there are different runes,
And
different
like
names.
can't
So there's,
deal
like, a sun
physical
rune,
or
life
can't
rune,
deal
power
elemental
runes, all
damage
these different
on
runes.
axes and stuff.
And you start, I believe, you start with all the ones that require only sun runes, and then once you get a life rune, you can take it to Danig, and he's like, oh, now I can learn all of the things that require life rune, and then
he's
so
doing
on.
the hard work.
So I mean,
Nice.
the Kalgurans are the ones who know how to do it. You're just bringing them the resources for it. So you eventually work your way up to the very most powerful ones, and you get things like what you saw there. There was the Fire Mjolnir, which you can put on one hand or two hand axe. What we've done is with a lot of the basic outcomes, you can apply that to any weapon, but with a lot of the very specialized ones, you can only apply it to one type of class. So the idea there isn't that like every build is just now doing the Doomfletch Prism on any weapon, the one that we saw on the live stream. It's like, no, that specifically goes on two-handed maces. And then I think the
did
Fire
not see
Mjolnir
a
one that was there
qualification
goes on,
for the
I think it's one-handed axes. And
for the minion
each
damage
thing goes
thing.
on specifically one weapon, and what it allows you to do is
It didn't look like it had
like an interesting
required weapon
bow
base type.
unique mechanic, and now you can put it on like some dagger or something like that.
New builds. Cool.
Yeah, and they get pretty powerful as far as like I think
They really didn't release
there's
any
one that
patch
is
notes
like,
before the thing like they normally do.
100. You can.
They wanted people to
100%
listen to
reduced duration
Q&A
of soul
first.
gain prevention for socketed gems on daggers, and like there's reckon every 20 seconds or something you get haunted by a different torment spirit, and I think there's like a rotating
still no
shrine
patch
buff
notes.
one. So it's like
Crazy.
every X second you're getting a new shrine buff on you, and not a lesser shrine, by the way.
We're all just sitting here
Sometimes
watching because we have
including
nothing else
divine
better
shrine
to
as
do.
well, so you can just be like, I'm just going to sit here until I'm immortal, and then I'll do the
Tier
boss.
17 mapping strategy.
But those all require the highest tier rune, which we expect to be very, very expensive.
So
yeah,
are
there's
these
some-
something that you can trade, the runes, between players?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Yeah.
I think I just might end up
Yes,
like
they
hopping
all
on the
come-
treadmill and just
primarily
watching
all come
someone
from shipping.
Yep.
go through
which you
and
can do
read
pretty
the
early in the
patch
game,
notes at this point.
but I suspect late game. And then they are considered a like additional bonus from shipping, where it's like if you trade to the Kalgurans, they'll send you that back, and the more you send them, the more runes they'll send you, because they're like, thanks for doing business with us.
Yeah. Do you know what they're sending you back when you send them a shipment, or is it kind of just like...
No, we've intentionally been quite vague with that, just
Yeah.
so people can figure it out. Now, it isn't. It is. There's some determinism, and then some that's just influenced. So, like, I can say, for example, generally crops are giving you back currency, and there's some general influence. But we want people to figure that out and experiment and make up their mind as to what they think is the best combinations to send
certain
to different
locations,
ports.
certain resources are going to give certain rewards back that players can
Can
learn.
I send
And
people?
there are
Oh my
bonuses on the
God.
port, so like you I think in the numbers there it's
Is that
set
a thing?
100. So
Can I
at any
send
given
my
time, it's like
workers
they'll
over?
pay double for wheat, or I'll pay, and then once you fill that order,
Cool.
so after you've sent 10,000 wheat, they might be like, all right, now we're going to pay triple for the next 500 vericium you send us, and stuff like that. So you are changing your shipments to different ports based on those bonuses. And then, like, for example,
I
the
wonder if
item
it's a
for
set
disenchanting,
pattern.
just a random slight pivot here, but the item you get from disenchanting, the thaumaturgic dust, that is a multiplier on your shipment value. So whatever you send, you then send a dust. So if you send some amount of dust, it'll just double your shipment value. And so that one, so you know, that's almost like a
key.
meta reward mechanic
Yeah.
in that regard.
And that's from grinding up your gear in the gear grinder thing.
that
That's
is from-
also another feature
yes.
that was in there.
And
I think
yep,
the
you
gear
get a
grinder,
lot more
you're
dust
going to
for
spend gold, buy from the black
just to
market,
add some
get
value
tier
to
1
some
mods, put it
Chaos
in the
teaser
grinder, and
mix.
grind tier 1 mods.
Disenchant them because
Because even if they're shit tier 1 mods, you'll still want to grind them
Modularity is
for the
key
dust.
there, so.
Generally it's like better items give you more, so 6 mods, higher 10 modifiers, and then rarity, higher.
You guys like
rarity
adding
uniques
sneaky
and
new
whatnot.
item sinks, don't you? Like that, yeah?
I'm right,
Oh,
you're just going to want to do this to get
I mean, it just
rare
turns
T1
garbage items
mods,
into
even
good
if they're
items
totally
is the
random and
idea,
shit.
or into
into
more
dust.
tickets at good items. Well, yeah, but the point being, the dust is the ticket
Yeah.
at better items, you know? Yeah.
Gotcha. Awesome. So another thing, recombination returns from Sentinel. It was mentioned that it's not going to be as strong as it was. It was obviously one of the strongest.
Hey, it looked
crafting
the
mechanics
exact
we've had,
same. What's
so I made
different?
problems on that. In what ways is it weaker now?
There's two things that have mostly changed about it. One is, and not that I can even specifically remember exactly how it all worked, but there was all this like chance to mutate stuff that was going on with
Yep.
it. That's all gone. It just
So it's
combines the items and that's what
Straightforward,
it does.
the items
Yeah.
together. So is
Yeah.
there like the unique extra mechanic, like modifiers that can randomly appear? Is
No,
that gone?
no, those are gone.
All right.
And
I don't even
so
remember
it
that
is
being a
just
thing.
merged two items together. The other thing that I like about
Isn't that-
doing
yeah,
it this
that's a
way,
buff,
as opposed to having it
actually.
data behind a currency item, is that you can actually engage.
Wait, that's
with it
actually a
earlier in the game.
gigantic
Now, I
buff
know
to
that's
it.
going to be pretty unorthodox for most existing players, but it's still something you can choose to now engage with because the gold cost is based on the item level of the item input, and so you can have it be very, very cheap early and more expensive later. And so it just opens it up to more players instead of just being this thing that you're only ever going to use on the best.
Is gold account-wide or player-wide?
That's good. I like that scalability that you can use it early.
Player-wide.
Even like early maps.
Player-bound or account-bound?
Like you can do things like that if you want to, of course.
Well, it's a good mechanic for that, but something that wasn't really accessible.
Yes, correct. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, and I know Sentinel was added. They don't drop recombinators now because it's done through this mean. So despite Sentinel being
just
there,
a thing that you can randomly find in maps to get more loot. And
just
have a
more
spicier
juicing.
Gameplay. Yeah, and you've done a bit of that too. So in addition to the new campaign stuff, making the campaign more interesting just with this random little encounters, you've got more stuff just appearing in maps as well. So Wildwood and Sentinel as well.
Yep. Why not?
Yeah, why not, eh?
More juice.
Love it.
Blight early.
I like
Blight
the idea of just the
Act
random
3.
encounters. Like they're not on the Atlas tree right now.
A random
mean they
grate
never
that we
will
have to
be.
go explore in
But
a
I like
Solaris
the
temple
fact
that we have to
there's a handful
explore.
of things that are just randomly spawning, and so you're doing your rotation, and that throws a little bit of a spanner in the works, and only in a positive element, right? It's not like it takes anything
especially
away.
for things like that that are effectively just this will give you more loot and currency and stuff. So like Wildwood and Sentinel, they're just about like.
Oh, I thought we were talking about
boost,
campaign
magic
improvements, not
so
in-game
you might not
improvements.
necessarily want those to be something that players can have active all the
Dawn on me.
time, but rather as like a cool bonus that randomly appears to make your map spicy.
That is the other benefit because it is random and not something that you can just have guaranteed.
It's not
they
warping your play.
They can be stronger.
Yeah.
They can be more impactful
true.
as a result. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Otherwise, they have to match the exact power of every other league on or thing you can invest into onto the Atlas tree.
Cool. So there was the mention of those like 3 bosses that can disrupt your shipping and all that sort of stuff. When they take something hostage, is just talking about like this gameplay. What is that gameplay like? Are you going into like random fights, or is it always a boss fight that you're going into when you're?
It's always a boss fight.
Yep.
Your Atlas runners will always be taken by the Bandit Lord. Your shipment will always be commandeered by the Admiral, whatever his name is, I forgot. Internal name by Pirate
I knew they were
Boss.
going to say internal names.
They get named and I don't remember them all the time. And then the one you find in the world is always the same one as well. And then the you pretty much just go, it'll notify you, and then you go back to the town, to King's March, and the NPC will just be like, here's a portal, go there, kill this person, or don't. If you don't want to, like if you feel like you're going to fail,
you see the NPC in hideout or
you can
town
bring your
or
party members, but you can only enter it once. Like once you die, you cannot re-enter. So
what did he say there?
one shot only.
Okay, let's take a little bit of a turn now, looking backwards at Necropolis and reflecting on some of the changes that happened in it. First, the overall endgame overhaul, such as the removal of sextants and the massive scarab rework. How do you just feel about that overall, both of you first? How that went to the endgame?
What the fuck are we talking about right now?
I do think overall good, but it's very easy for that.
Why
to
are we
get,
talking about Necropolis changes?
Looked at from a perspective of a few things that are bad and then looking at it badly. Like there are certainly some things that were imperfect and we are making some measures to change that. But I do think overall the shake-up was pretty healthy. And when I talk about the bad things, I'm talking like the T17 maps being too hard, right? Yep. And that kind of
Mark has a low taper fade.
Overshadows a lot of what's good about it because there's these few things that aren't right. And
wrap it up, unwrap it,
okay,
wrap it up.
Wandering
What
Path,
the fuck
great, and then
is
we added
happening
back
in
to
chat?
basics,
I
which
just
is
started reading it
also
for, like,
gone
the
now, by
first
the
time.
way, just to clarify, which wasn't mentioned there.
Sure,
Back to Basics was even more unhealthy
Yep.
than Wandering Path, or equally unhealthy, depending. But both of them not good, not achieving the philosophy we want. So we didn't. Because of that, and because Back to Basics became the meta, it ended up like not even evolving that much. And so I'm hoping with this now set of changes, but all of that ultimately comes about with, because what's going to happen is when you are releasing content on this scale, and I am certainly a risk taker, I like to push the boundaries and all that, you are going to have these things happen. it is borderline impossible for us to test everything, and that's where you see a lot of the reactionary patches that we did early in the league to try and fix and improve everything.
NPC.
That definitely was something that was really hard. Just for the team as well. Like, it's also very hard just decision making about, is this something that should be fixed or is it not? It was pretty rough at the start there, and I think that is something we're trying to improve this time around by looking more at the extremes and like really zeroing in. So there's definitely a mandate to QA now of like, okay, we need to really work out.
I wonder if it sits right behind them right there, and their monitors just
the difficulty of what that results in.
Always live to us.
Is the difficulty versus reward correct for what the players can do here, this kind of thing, and it's something obviously that we should have been like thinking more about before, and like it's something that we're really making sure this time we'll try and do better. But it's tough because like even thinking about what
I can't even tell what they have open. It looks like they have text open. It looks like they have the Settlers of Kalguur
combinations of things like there's so many
page
ways to
open.
combine stuff and like from so much content from the past as well.
Wait,
that like you just,
that is actually what it looks like they have
it's,
open.
It's hard to find. Like the fact that there were people finding new ways to abuse stuff even weeks after the it came out just sort of shows you that like there's just it was kind of nuts.
Yeah, you guys asked me an interesting question yesterday when I first came in. It was like, how does 150 uniques from a single boss sound to you? I'm like, that sounds crazy. What are you talking about?
Not good.
I guess we'll talk about some of the things that were happening that people weren't aware of. So there's there was a Reddit thread, and so I can't remember how far into the league, that was pretty much like, what the heck has happened to the prices of T0 uniques?
Yeah.
And you had like Defiance of Destiny at like 4C. It was like actual craziness. And upon looking at this, and oh no, none of this was anyone abusing or exploiting anything.
Not a bug or anything, yeah.
In fact, I think, did we tell you the value of how many unique items were dropping in some of these?
I told him.
I was going to ask you to guess, but we were getting over 100,000 unique items in some instances, and I'm not even talking in a map. In a single map, and I'm not talking in a. I'm not talking a 6-man group. I'm talking solo players who are able to achieve this, and this is where a lot of those things, so for example, the Shaper Touched rarity, there were just so many layers of multipliers that if used correctly altogether, but you ended up with less than 100 people on the entire realm acquiring over 99% of all T0 uniques. And so we have gone and looked at all that and been like, okay, with this, that is highly compromising the economy and the integrity of the economy, and we fixed some of this last league, but we are doing more of it this time to make sure.
I mean, what would you even do with 100,000 uniques?
Isn't like having the economy ruined.
How many stash tabs would you need to fill?
Controlling that like high top end, and
assuming they're small uniques.
People would never have known this was happening.
Like
they would
rings,
have just been like, where
amulets,
are all these uniques coming from?
Wands.
It's just the math of
it's just
rarity
exactly
daggers,
technically
stuff like
legal
that.
stuff, and like there's always a question.
No chest piece, no axe, no bows.
We have the policy of no mid-act nerfs, and yet there were certain cases, and that was really tough. The last
that sounds like an unintended bug
that
that should have been patched out immediately
because it was just so ridiculous. Like there was stuff going on there that just was not okay.
I saw a screenshot of like one of the monsters that would be part of this, and it was like. It had a list of modifiers that was the entire screen, right?
Right. We were talking yesterday about whether or not we need a way to collapse the display of the number of essences underneath something's life bar, and it's like, where are we at? Which, by the way, it's still there, so it's like a thing that you can still do. But yeah, it's and I'm not talking like we're getting rid of all the uniques. Like that's what I'm saying. I'm asking you, is 150 all right? And you're like, that sounds excessive. And I'm like, well, it's like several hundred times less than what it was, but it's still top off screen, bottom off screen of unique items just everywhere. And that's just like a single
hate quantity. I'd way much have
it to be extreme.
Less quant, more rarity.
But it shouldn't be that the entire economy is ruined by.
It should take like 100 of those uniques and smash them into one.
Using anything or exploiting anything or doing anything illegitimate, like
higher tier ones.
That's where we got into that state where it was like, all right, nerf? Do we have to nerf X,
Like
A, B, C, and D as we kind of discovering and figuring out their strategies?
Make something where it's like
the fact that this stuff
once the boss rolls his loot, if he is going to drop, let's say, 9 uniques, he drops them. If he were to drop 10, it drops just like one low tier and one higher tier unique. If it drops 11, it would just drop 2 lower tier, 1 high tier until it got to like the next barrier or whatever you got to, like 100 or like 50 or whatever, and then it would be like 2 high tier uniques, and then like if you got to 100
ridiculous
or 150 or whatever the hell they're talking about, it would be like
it feels like
chance to be like a
up over this past couple of leagues to
100%
exalted unique or whatever the hell, tier 1 unique.
Go back to that philosophy of like, if we can do stuff to make things better, we do it. And it's just the unfortunate reality is that, and I'm ultimately the one pushing most people to do this for PoE 1, and the unfortunate reality is it comes with risks, and as a result, failures, of which are 100% on me, like without question. And that's why, again, like straight after the patches, it's like full hands on deck trying to make sure everything is as good as possible. And then we get into a little bit of that difficulty of thinking some people want the game to stay as it is, regardless of the state, and a lot of people want it to keep changing. And we get into this kind of like, which side of this fence do we fall on? And we have to really evaluate each change and do it. But look, ideally, the changes wouldn't be necessary. But when you're changing this much, doing patches this massive, this quickly, some of it is inevitable. I would hate to, I personally, and you could convince me, you could, or not convince me, you could tell me I'm wrong about this, you might be able to convince me. I would prefer that we do everything possible with the time allocated, as opposed to like, play it safe, do something, a small patch and give it there, and yeah, sure, it's safe, less will go wrong, but at the end of the day, there's way less to do, way less fun, way less changes, less to learn and evolve with, and it just feels like,
what do we do
I
this
suspect
league?
At the end of the day, it'll be way more boring.
Like
even though it might be more safe.
What are we doing?
So, again,
we're just like running maps as normal, right?
I've gone too far one direction,
and then
we
every like hour we go back by
like I never want to get to the point where we're releasing something flat and stale,
sailors or whatever, and send them on a journey, and then come back an hour later.
Everything to make things
or
as
10
fun
hours
and
later
and the
when
best
they're
as
done.
possible for everyone.
And the whole time they were gone, we've just been farming ore and stuff to send on the next journey.
It's refreshing, I think, for a lot of us who've been playing for 10 years at this point.
Right.
It's pretty cool stuff. So on the tier 17
I
maps,
don't actually know what we're going to be doing.
Like a gateway to Uber bosses, but they ended up being harder and more restrictive than that actual content. And we had Uber boss viable builds, really struggling with that actual content. So how are you kind of changing things with that, or are you happy with it, where that's at?
I mean, the ultimate numerical change to T17 monsters is that they have it's approximately 55% less life, so they have less than half the life they had before and 30% less damage, which seems extreme. And I will just note that was like actually not intended.
Yeah, an interesting story about that.
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate that 2 different designers did the life change to T17 without realizing the other person had already done it.
That's so funny.
So that was kind of like an unintended side effect. But it's like
What
when
the
you come down to
fuck?
it, so why the hell are these monsters so damn tough? And then we're like, oh crap, there's someone. There were two.
What the fuck? How did that not get patched out immediately once you guys realized that?
Not just like an absolute joke now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just the monsters themselves, which it did compound with back to basics and the mod scaling, like the thing. Once you have like 400% increased area of effect on the monsters, it's kind of like, okay, this is like getting a little, on the bosses I should say, it's like this is getting a little bit out of hand. Like, how can I dodge this mechanic that is larger than the arena?
I can't believe
that's
that's actually what happened.
But then it's like you want that for the rest of the map, which
That
then
seems
means the bosses are pretty
unbelievable to
much,
me.
like, impossible.
And it
Strong
seems
words to use
unbelievable
'cause
that that's the
everything's always
reason,
possible
and they
enough,
didn't change it
build
until
ruckus
now.
going on. But anyway, it wasn't right. Like, these things weren't right. So hopefully with back to basics removed and the changes to T17s, implicitly it should be more approachable to more players. Less you have to play like a subset of 10, 12 builds in order to achieve them. Like, it should be way more open. Obviously with all the melee builds as well, that should be a hell of a lot more viable this time. So I would expect a lot more players to be enjoying those, as opposed to because again, we're solving the item quantity thing where it's like we want to open up more builds and make you feel less like you have to play certain things. So then T17s being that hard resulted in the exact same thing. These are not intentional things. When you get to Uber Pinnacle, it's all right for the number of builds to reduce drastically because it's like you want to be a boss killer at that point, or that's fine. But when we're just talking about like the top tier of maps, it's not okay to have it be so constrained there. So
it should start to funnel.
Honestly,
that should be the point of T17s. It should cut the fat off the edges.
So the main design of the modifiers on these maps is these build bricking modifiers, ones that are just basically not doable for.
It should take off like
why is
20%
went with for these modifiers
of like builds.
I personally just think it is important that you actually are investing in rolling your map and finding the maps that you can do, or choosing how you can overcome the modifiers. And I know that's probably not a popular opinion. I very much understand that a lot of people are just like, I can go, and that's all I want to do. But I think especially with the upper tier like that and the extra layer of rewards that they're giving, I think you should have to invest more currency into it.
I think this league, I'm going to try and outgear it.
Oh, this is a real good map.
Instead of change the
modifiers you want,
difficulty.
But there's this one bad thing I'm going to have to deal with. And
so it looks like we can get very, very tanky this league.
It again hopefully adds more ebbs and flows to the process, as opposed to it again just being like out go and run, and that can be quite where some people like that, and that's okay. You can still obviously do that with 16s.
The most delusional
I do like
comment.
These things having an impact on
Q&A every single time and never drops patch notes. I think this is the first time they've ever did Q&A without dropping patch notes.
And again, investing into them,
especially not
it's
the
certainly not something I'd want to stray away
Kalguur
from.
webpage.
I actually consider it a
always
success when you
that.
have to re-roll your maps. Again, probably a controversial take, but I think it is a much better thing getting an actual. Like, it feels more like an actual game mechanic as opposed to like, well, at the point it's just Alk and Go, and Alks are worth so little. Why you just drop them rare, and like why are you even engaging with the currency on maps system?
Why have mods if the mods don't matter?
Do you take like some consideration to how many chaos, for example, you expect someone to put into a map to produce mods that are on average viable for their build that they're doing?
We do, yes.
They haven't even changed the banner from Necropolis yet. It still says
not in
Necropolis.
The context of the build here, but like for example, we were like, okay, if we want to make T17s able to be easier, like should we reduce it back to 4 to 6 modifiers?
Yep.
But then you just the argument, the reason why we never did that just this league is because, well, now it's even more chaos you have to invest to get 6 modifiers, because the right answer is probably
the viewers haven't dropped off.
Because it gives
still the exact same amount.
And so it's like, well, that's just going to massively increase the amount of chaos orbing someone has to do on those maps. So let's not do it that way. Let's find a different way to do it. So we're definitely considering how many you're having to. From a like,
I wonder if people are going to get like
specific,
bots,
like
a righteous fire bot that opens maps, runs in random directions, kills things,
like
on back out with gold.
But in terms of like broad mechanics, we do generally try and consider that.
Yeah, I imagine you'd be taking like a range of builds and saying, on average, it's going to take about 10, 20 rerolls to.
Because it doesn't need to pick up anything. It doesn't need to kill anything specific.
My hope is that some people at least look at it and go, okay, if I just change this one thing, then I can still run it. So it's not always just like.
Oh shit!
I know this is probably the preferred strategy. In fact, I'll do it myself probably most of the time. You just avoid anything that's going to cause any friction to your character. But like, there are probably a good chunk of players who are just like, I will deal with this bit of friction by either slowing down a little bit or changing something or subbing something out, or it's good for those players to be able to do that, because then technically they're having to invest less currency. Whether or not it's worth the payoff, it's up to them really to decide that. But
you want the mods to matter, and I get that, and these certainly do matter. But how do you feel about it versus modifiers that do things like, say, this modifier adds these certain sorts of packs of monsters to the map that are very difficult, but also increasing the reward and making the map more interesting by making it more different, as opposed to something like, your energy shield is turned off?
The problem you have with things that are implicitly adding direct rewards beyond certain other things is obviously the issue of the fact that you now feel like you have to roll for them. And you saw like this with the Shaper
is a maze.
And with the Shaper Touch modifier earlier this league before it was changed, all of a sudden now all of a sudden you're spending more currency on the maps than you were avoiding the builds, because now you are not only having to get a specific rewarding outcome, you're
What
having
was
to dodge
what was
to
the
build
league?
things as well.
Was it
And so it was even more.
was it
And
Wildwood that they said
as
the problem that
we've
people,
removed some mods this
even though
league,
the
like, I know
content's
the
going to be
barrels was
infinitely
one of them,
harder,
where
people
were
will
going for the
always do
barrels
it,
and
even though
we've
it'll
removed a few of those,
hurt
like,
them.
you know,
Like,
sync
it won't be
currency
as
inputs. I would
rewarding, or
actually
they'll
expect the
die
amount
way
of chaos
more,
you're sinking into these is less this league,
just with the
because
hope
we've
of doing
removed those.
better or something.
But we have kept some.
Or is that
but, like, we've
Crucible?
also then made them rarer, so you're like less likely. But then, if you, which I know you could say is counterintuitive to investing currency, because now you have to invest more if you have to get them. But there is a point beyond where you're now no longer expecting to get it, and thus you are just like, okay, getting it as a surprise, as opposed to when it's kind of within reach, you will just sink currency until it's there. But I actually do like the fact that, like,
30k passionates will be there soon. He's got to type out 30k words. He started
and then you'd exalt
typing
the maps
when
and stuff like that. That stuff was
I found
that
when they started the live stream. He's almost done with page 60 fucking 9.
for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're not obviously going in that path anymore. But there's still a little bit of it there. The mods still matter. Reward mods can be bad, but it's good to also have them. There's like a little bit of friction there, which is hard to get perfectly right. And then in the same sense, yeah, I mean, some of them are probably... There are some other small balance changes around T17s, like those bloody Revenant packs were out of control. All of a sudden the corpse is exploding that you can't even see. Like, we did all of this, like,
How
telegraphing
long has this been
improvements to
going
detonate
for?
dead, and then like missed revenants.
Good stuff. Yeah.
So all of a sudden now you're just dead to this invisible corpse.
Are these normally
explosion.
2 hours long?
There's a few other fine-tuned balance around some of the T17 stuff to make it feel less terrible, and I think it's pretty good. I'm not going to say it's perfect, but I'm hoping that it's
3
going to feel a
fucking
lot better.
hours.
Should tier 17s be one of the most profitable things to farm?
I think yes. I mean, what is the argument for no?
I've just
You know,
seen
like,
discussion.
I don't
on
mean from
that
you, I just
topic
mean in general.
Yeah, like, some people are, concerned about whether that's the thing that should be happening or not.
Well, should T16s before that? And you could argue, well, okay, T17s you have to trade for. And that's the real difference, is that if you want to run them permanently, you have to trade for them. But generally the economy sorts itself out there to some degree. It's just that it adds that extra layer of annoyance.
Yeah.
But then also if T17s were self-sustaining, then it was kind of like, what differentiates them from 16s at that point? It's just back to what you were doing with 16s, except they're now purple with harder modifiers, and you could argue that's better or worse, except I really like the idea of that, when you are just generally playing and not engaging with, the trade to that level, you're doing 16s with the occasional popping into 17s here and there. I do think that is generally better. But I can see why it can be annoying for someone who's like, I have to trade for these because I don't want to run anything but them. But that kind of can always be argued to be the case for almost everything. I
mean, in some ways, T17s are are the map scarcity that the map system used to have long ago at lower levels. It's like you've got this one tier that kind of has that sort of like, you're not expected to necessarily, like, if you're just playing without trade, to be able to just run it again and again for T17 specifically, and that's kind of also comes down to that same thing with the mods. It's like the reason you're caring about re-rolling and so on for T17s is because of the fact that you don't necessarily have, they're not just growing on trees. That's why you've got a bit of a different philosophy there with the mods that they have on as well.
I know this stuff is like pretty it's going to be pretty polarizing between people as to what's right there, but like, it is very important to us that the ebbs and flows remain, and you don't just end up with this flat, boring grind at the very top end like that. Like, it should be evoking difficulty, and it shouldn't just feel completely just it gets further away from a game and more towards just a kind of AFKable / and I don't mean actually AFKable, but something where you're not really investing much emotion into and thought into, and it doesn't feel like you're playing at that point. It just feels like you're just going along with it. So I think it's very important to have the different spikes and things come and go, and to have friction and all of those things. And I think without any of that, you'd find stuff would get very boring very quickly.
Just very quickly, how do you feel about the betrayal changes, like the change to the Veiled Chaos and the simplification of it as well? It feels like now it's mostly people just kind of spamming Katarina with maybe some consideration to getting some like div card stacks or something like that, but you're not really doing as much of the engaging with the board now, I think.
Betrayal is in a very bad state, for sure. I am not happy with it. It was on the list of 325's thing. I know, despite the fact we have so much, there was more. We didn't get round to doing it. It's currently slated for 326. I'm very much hoping we can do it then. The main thing I want to divorce is... so I actually just want there to be... there is one safe house, and that... and so all 4 connect to one thing. Sorry, how do I explain this? It's like, effectively, Katarina isn't tied to the safe house. Like, you can do your safe house, and that will give you a ticket to Katarina. And so you just have one safe house that has the whole board on it, and you earn intelligence for it, and the people still have their reward association, and then doing that gives you a itemized version of Katarina you can run separately. But the main thing is you're not linking the board to Katarina's, because there's always been this friction of do I min-max my Katarina outputs, or do I, do my interesting board layout? And you're just at the point where it's like, screw all that. I just want as much mastermind intelligence as possible. Yep. So I'm not going to interact with anything on the board really, except for whatever might min-max that. And so, yeah, I want to divorce those two things so that you don't have that conflict, because we have never been able to get that balance, and I don't even know if that's possible. You're always either going to want to never run Katarina because it destroys your board state, or you'll always run Katarina because the Veiled Orb. And so I want to, divorce those two things such that one doesn't destroy the other. Because it hasn't been right the whole time.
I feel like I kind of like that, but
much better.
Or I like the old way, not the new way he's talking about. But
there is a thing you can do. You
I just don't like Katarina.
You can trade for it. You can buy the tickets to it if you want, or and then you can do all the
just
board
killed
interaction.
so many of my fucking characters.
You'll still have I want to min-max my safe house running to get tickets to Katarina, but what we can do is have a correlation of the chance of getting it, or the number of the tickets you get to Katarina correlate to the state of the board somehow. But at least I don't ever want it to be like I'm not going to fight Katarina because I don't want to reset the board. I don't think those two frictions should ever occur. It hasn't been right, honestly, since we released it, to be honest.
All right,
so.
Let's let him cook, hey? Let's let him cook. So we should talk just a little bit about Necropolis itself. I know you were pretty excited for the mechanic. I was too.
He did. We did already. We're done with Necropolis.
And it certainly ended up very powerful, but ultimately,
I'm tilted now.
Mechanic, not that popular.
How are we still talking about this?
Kind of engaging with it, the corpses, managing all of that. But how do you feel about Necropolis in hindsight now?
Yeah, definitely that part is, well, we kind of knew going in that it was more on the complicated side, for sure. Some things just kind of, it's not necessarily a problem for something to be a little bit more complicated like that, but it probably went a little bit too far. That being said, it was pretty damn powerful, especially after our changes we made very early into the league.
It was literally the most broken mechanic there's ever been in the game. I've made so many perfect items that league.
But yeah, that being said, understood.
My perfect
it was a bit
bow,
too
my perfect
computer
chess
sciencey, I like to
piece,
call it, in terms of
perfect
lots
wand,
of figuring out, what to do, and kind of uncertainty to the point where it overwhelmed a lot of people. And that's where you see,
I never made perfect
even
boots.
recombinating and runesmithing coming back, way more simple.
I started
Some things are just
craft
very
of them,
clean
but I
cut.
never finished
Some
it.
things are a little bit more complicated, and different users appeal to both. Would I have changed it now knowing that? I mean, I would have had the balance initially go out correct at the start, but I would say there's still a place for things like for it.
The update was
it's too strong.
very solid
They
for
need
it, making it a lot,
the exact same
Simplified
mechanic,
a
but they
bunch
need to
of
get
stuff
rid of
down the middle as
modifier
well.
tier.
I'd probably have gone a bit further with
So
the
you can't have,
simplification
like,
if I'd had to
perfect,
redo it with some of it. Some of those like meta mods and
items,
some of the more
just
crazy things are
guaranteed
a little bit,
perfect items every
For me,
single
though,
time.
It wasn't about so much how much complicated it was, and it was more about the just getting so many corpses, trading for so many corpses, right?
I had 3 quad tabs of corpses,
more impactful
3
ones would have
full
been a lot
quad
bigger.
tabs,
You
and a
ended up getting
necropolis, and a graveyard.
That's partly
full.
due to the Atlas tree passives, which was a mistake. Straight up, goodbye, they're gone.
Yeah.
If it was to redo,
Experiment, done.
yeah, yep, 100% experiment.
I really
Been
thought
all
that
over
was
there.
going to be a good idea. It wasn't.
Everyone saw that as an Atlas tree tax.
Yeah.
Yep, it was. You could have argued making them way weaker would have mitigated that. whatever.
Why?
The original intention of it was like, okay, we want these keystones because it allows people to change behavior. And I think if we are to see that again,
It really, I think they were right for doing it
ways for people to change
because
the behavior,
we
but not
all
invest into the increases and
thought
more
it was going to be
corpses and all of
really
that
cool
because,
to do that, but it did end up kind of just
felt
sucking.
mandatory. And
But
it often will when you have
that's
the
on
league
all
in
of
every
us.
single
I think
area.
every single
And so,
person I've seen said that was a good
pretty big
idea.
contributor towards this problem.
We were all wrong.
It felt like the opposite of what we were talking about with gold, where gold allows you to turn like user experience friction into gameplay friction. It was the opposite, where it was all user experience friction because it was about trading with a ton of non-responding people for corpses.
Yep. Well, yep, sure.
40 times per craft.
We also obviously made a lot of changes to that early as well in the league, but still it was like, I remember Ziz messaged me at one point and it's just like, oh my god, the amount of quad tabs I need to hold all these corpses, and I'm just like feeling real sad about it. It's not like, that was the
I literally
intention by
bought
any
new
means.
quad tabs just to fill
I
it with
didn't
corpses.
quite hit the mark for sure.
And one quad tab for
Lessons learned
all
for
flames.
sure. Yeah.
All right, cool. The All Flames had a bit more mixed
Oh, there they
positive
go.
and negative. Like, it was definitely a very cool added layer of map customization, but it was not optional, and that was definitely the concern we had going into it. And it also added just that extra layer of work that you have to do before you can start playing, which PoE has a fair bit of. And
for sure. And again, we again with the league being like, something you do have to generally engage with before doing areas. It's again that kind of X factor that makes a league different and makes it feel different. But at the end of the day, probably was a little bit too much annoyance to have to do this thing every single area. But it's certainly we like to try these things out here and there. Some people probably thoroughly enjoyed engaging with that stuff, of course. And I mean, end of the day, leagues are never going to really be for everyone. They're always going to have some amount of people who aren't really into it. But look, we tried something new. We always do like to try something new when it comes to these leagues, and a lot of people did enjoy various elements of it. Some of it doesn't hit. That's all right. Like, we don't do it again, right? Like, that's part of it. And this is a lesson learned every single league, right? There are always elements of leagues that don't work. There are elements we learn from. There are elements we don't repeat. And then we take often what we can do is take the stuff that is good, that is fun, and find a way to integrate it into the game later. And now the core game experience is overall better as a result of us, learning from all the stuff.
Yeah. Keep the experiments going. Keep going wild with it. We're going to go rapid fire now so people can get their 30,000 patch notes, their record-setting patch notes very soon here. So we had finally the much-awaited massive melee changes. What was the...
Holy fuck, how can this be a small conversation? There's so much to talk about.
I mean, ultimately
melee stuff.
Ultimately, the community. People wanted it.
What was like the key change that you kind of needed, maybe to get figured out?
The one that I remember us walking
Oh
through.
yeah, those DMCA claims get
It was
removed.
kind of we made a document of like, okay, what are the things that a melee build currently mandatorily needs to know to do in order to be viable.
It did.
And effectively, we had all these multipliers, and if you
I
didn't
disputed
know
some
then you just sucked.
claims on the Elden Ring
and so effectively,
videos.
we needed to do something about
Some
that. to make it so that,
bullshit
people
just
hit
claiming
things
the
as,
Elden
a more
Ring
viable
songs.
path. I think
and
this
they
is really
got
looking at
accepted.
that. So that
Nice.
hence why you have.
I've never had a DMCA request
honestly,
be
even I was kind of shocked that
appealed before,
was like, let's
ever.
just straight up remove them. I know we talked for a little bit about maybe there's some way to make it so that
I wonder if the
builds
ones
that use them aren't the same as the
from
builds or something. But in the end, it was just like, you know what, we'll go clean slate, and we'll try to make sure.
I can't even
let's just get
filter
rid of
by
any of
it.
these barriers.
I wonder if the ones from
I think that was probably the right
Acropolis
choice.
ever got
I just want you to hit things with your
rejected.
weapon, or hit monsters or the ground with your weapon, and things die, and you're not having don't get me wrong. I want there to be secondary axes of skills that are often skill involved. You do have to use them. I don't just want it to be that you have 1 6-link and every single other gem slot
it looks
is
like they
empty.
were.
Like
The
it should be that there
DMCAs
are these other
eventually
axes,
fell
but I
off
also
for
want you to be able
the
to choose whether or
PoE
not
videos
which ones
too.
you use, which ones you invest in.
People
into
that
the
were
tree.
claiming all the
Whereas a lot of what was
OTS
happening
music.
before is something is often
That's
either
cool.
too powerful that you feel like you have to use it, and all of a sudden now every single build is using this exact same thing, and every single build feels so similar. Whereas really the way that should ideally work is something is much weaker initially, and you have to invest into the passive tree and stuff like that to make it good enough. But it means that different characters will have different secondary specializations, and you'll find a lot of these, like something like tinctures, something like retaliation skills, they're going to be quite polarizing people are going to love him or hate him. And that's okay. That's good.
I think the tincture stuff's going to be useless compared to an ascendancy. They were good as additive ascendancies, secondaries.
But the one other main thing is I really want it to be
good as
less unique item-driven mandatory things.
Or a regular ascendancy.
Right? I don't want uniques to suck, don't get me wrong. I just want it to be that it's like, in order to do X, Y, and Z, I must be using this, and now I'm considered viable by the game's standards,
like build checklist thing that we...
Yeah, it's gone a little bit too far. And so we're bringing a lot of these mechanics to the forefront on the passive tree, because that is one way place. And of course, by having more... Like, considering when you got this league, you're going to have runesmithing. You've got the obviously quality changes applies to unique. You've got the new modifiers on rare items. You've got we haven't buffed the life on every unique. We've buffed it on Kelms. That's it, right? So all uniques proportionally just got worse to rare items, quite intentionally, so that rare item, and it's not,
that's not entirely true. I seen a pair of boots that had higher life on them.
It should be that you can get further
they showed
without having to
that wasn't higher life, that was higher energy shield,
especially with melee this time round. And on top of that, like bringing a lot of these hidden mechanics that were like hard to figure out way more to the foreground, so they're just more obvious and you can figure them out. And also just hit things and they die, and not feel so like, okay, I'm hitting things and they're not dying, but now I do this thing and combine this and this and this and this and this, and now things get hit and die. But that is still there, and that will allow you to go even further and even more efficiently, and thus get more items and more power, of course, right? We're not dumbing things down. The intention is just to make it that, like, if you aren't doing all of these things, you're not just absolute garbage,
Well, playing devil's advocate a little bit, the new banners... Is that kind of just melee totems again?
I mean, not in this... Okay, they're not as powerful implicitly. They are...
They kind of are,
It depends what you want to call it.
They are kind of fucking just new totems,
The busy work side of things of... I'm
you
having to
motherfuckers.
Do this thing so often,
and now we have to use those stupid-ass
like,
totems on our like minion builds
like
and shit. We actually have to press them every
you can
time.
Get damage from so many places. Only one of the banners is giving damage. It's giving a lot less damage.
Automatic totems are just auras.
You have to speak into a lot of them onto the tree. They are still kind of good. I do expect a lot of melee characters still to be using them.
I guess
I do like the idea that
you can make it so
skill involved as to thinking when should I use them.
They're not an always up thing like the totems were, which was the biggest issue with them.
Unless you invest into them, in which case, so one of the passives that was shown is that banner effects linger for X seconds. They automatically pick up when you exit the radius, so you can place them down and then just sprint.
Oh, that's really nice.
Effect for seconds, and then you can place it again. And sure, it might end up being like on rotation. It's being used for some builds, and on others,
I wonder if you can link it with automation.
Doing it during a breach and during this, but on
do you think that would work? Linking it with automation,
they're not.
So that it automatically goes off.
I feel like you have a lot more agency with banners,
and then automatically picks up when you.
Yeah. The other thing, of course, being getting rid of.
No, it probably doesn't.
We're getting rid of a lot of the extreme high power mandatory things. That if you were a player, who
I should be able to test it right now if I log in with automation.
Viable. And the one other thing we've done there, I know we said rapid fire, but it is don't worry, it's part of the question. We've made sure to we've got spreadsheets out the wazoo of like experience per hour testing. We've got like, time testing. We've got like our, one of the, people probably see him takes ages, always on the ladder, freaking winning things here and there. He has been sitting there running, literally doing races, technically with every single class for the last 3 months, probably straight. Every single waking minute, he is playing a different character, writing down times to kill Brutus, time to kill this, time to get to this, time to do this, XP per hours everywhere, what variables make the most difference. We've taken all of that data and gone and been like, all right, these are the outliers on the bottom, these are the outliers on the top. Let's like find out where the thing should sit.
Did they just say a random dev was doing this, or did they get like
a character with
Ben or
let's say you've got 70th percentile gear, and there's a caster next to you that has 70th percentile gear. if you can maintain
do this.
a melee character is generally meant to be stronger and more efficient at
Hey,
that
maybe they
point,
got tie
of
23
course,
of the
but
real
it is
gear, Chad.
easier to take damage and harder to maintain damage uptime as a result. So if you can overcome those two axes, a melee character with equivalent gear should be better than any other character.
On a better play, in a better player's hands.
Yes, and then a better player can obviously seize that even better and take that even further.
That's fascinating. Wow. So we've got like new item bases going into much higher level maps and stuff like that as well. What kind of led to that change there? Just making rares matter again?
Making
I just
rares
realized
matter
he has
again
a
is one
mouse
thing, but
there that
also
he's
it's,
reading
again, adding that very
something
obvious
off a
way
TV
to
or
keep getting
something.
upgrades throughout in-game. Honestly,
Look at him
given how
scrolling.
long
Look at
in-game
him.
takes and
Look
how
at him
much
go.
of an integral part of it is,
Next
like the amount
question.
of base types
Look at him go.
introduced there, like sure we had steel
What's he
rings
scrolling
and
through?
two
What are you
ton
looking
boots,
at?
But they didn't really make a huge difference.
Yep.
So we're just adding more here. It is more clear. Like if you are struggling in yellow maps, you have something you can try and get now to make that easier for yourself. If you're struggling in red maps, you have these obvious things that are like, this will be an upgrade for me. Let me actually try and do it. Obviously just on the defensive axis for now, so you can maybe focus a little bit more of your passives into damage, along with all the new defensive tools. But yes, primarily it is like
YouTube videos uploaded before the fucking
here's a way that you can upgrade your character, and of course for high-end players, it's a new thing to strive for to push their character further than ever before. I wouldn't say this specific direct goal.
I guess we'll just keep it private for now.
That is just a happy side effect of rare items mattering more once again.
Right. We'll wrap up pretty much there. We've got lots of new leagues coming back this time. Is there any other ones you're looking forward to? I know people have been asking about the Trial of the Ancients as well, whether that sort of stuff's coming back.
Trial of the Ancestors, probably not. Maybe for I don't know. You never know with these things. If you had asked me Sentinel, I would have said no.
Yeah.
And now it is. So you never know with these
there
things.
There we go. They just swapped.
No,
they just changed the supporter pack thing.
Things change every week around here.
Guys, this was a massive Q&A.
But they did just change the supporter pack thing, so let's try the
notes. And there'll be an FAQ news post wrapping up some of the questions from this, but also ones that we didn't get a chance to get around to. So you guys will be able to answer some of them there and read some of those later. But thanks so much.
Nope.
Jonathan, thank you very much.
Thank you, and good luck to everyone reading those patch notes.
Yeah, good luck.
It'll take a while.
Yeah.
We considered doing audiobook versions of them in the past, but I'm not going to be sitting there. I would have to be reading that.
Pick your favorite streamer.
Okay.
Remind them to
I think that's what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to hop on the treadmill.
But that's it for now. I'm ZiggyD.
And probably watch, I don't know.
Thank you.
Who's going to read them? Whoever I find reading them. Probably Ziz or something. God, there's so much. I feel like the Q&A this time, normally I'm really engaged with the Q&A. This time I was just like so not tuned in. It's too much information to process. When we're talking about things and like how they work and like timings and all this stuff, and we're like 2 magnitudes removed from it. Like we don't even know what it is, what it feels like, what it does, what it gives, anything. And we're talking about like the numbers of it. It's too removed. It would have been like talking about like the different stats and gears and percentages for corpse crafting in Necropolis without ever being able to see or know what corpse crafting was beforehand. It's too much. Maybe that's what it, I don't know. Maybe I'm just tired and maybe it was the same as always. I don't know. Maybe I just miss Chris Wilson, huh? Maybe that. That's it for me. I'm gonna probably just go watch someone, maybe Karn, because I do their reading, and watch him do the patch notes. I'll do an update on what I think of the league and what I'm gonna be doing. Hint though is I'm gonna be doing a randomized gem and everything for the start of the league, probably. I might something in my throat. I might base start Absolution again unless I see something different. I don't know. Maybe even Absolution